How are you?
How's it going? I'm good. How are
Not
you?
bad. Let's see.
Now,
On the
now, now,
weekend,
now
I saw that video and I'm like, I got to get Randy on the show again. Like, look at you showing the kids up, the young
to,
bucks
to,
just
cl-
doing 26 reps.
to clarify, I wasn't planning to go on social media. I was just going to the gym on a Sunday afternoon, and I decided I was making up my workout. I was I got to try this out. And yeah, I mean, that's actually not my best lately, but I had a pretty busy weekend and I hadn't slept much. And I just went for it, and yeah, it's cool. It's you think back to the combine and preparing for one of those tests, and yeah, it was just a fun thing to do. And then I was like, I'm going to post it. Why not? And it seemed to have inspired a couple of other former CFLers that, oh, yeah, I'm going to do it too. And a bunch of guys got up there and just threw it up there. And, the bench press doesn't really test much. It doesn't really apply to football. I think it shows sort of a commitment to improving on something, that you put some time in. And yeah, if you're a lineman and you can only do 2 reps, then they're going to look at you sideways. But if you're a lineman and you can do anywhere from 20 to 40 reps, it's not going to determine the type of football player you're going to be. And we've seen that historically at the combine, guys that just go all bananas on the bench press, and you never heard of them after. So, but for me, for an old guy, 48 years old, I still love to train. I still love to throw the weights. I tell all the teams, and if Corey Mace is listening today, I got a couple of good months in me in October and November, if you need. And then after that, I got that till I'm 50. So 2 more years of this, and then I'll sign my retirement.
Speaking of inspiring former CFL players, we had Charleston Hughes on in hour one, and we love Charleston. He's our favorite guest.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he had talked about not only did he say he's going to go in the gym and video and beat you, but he had said his first year as a Calgary Stampeder, you were so nice to him and you guys worked out every day and you showed him the ropes coming into the league and he couldn't say enough nice things about you. How important was it for you to be like a mentor, to look what he turned into? Do you think that can happen without proper mentorship and the guys showing the other guys the way?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it was always in my DNA to want to be that guy for guys, even guys that were directly in competition with me. But Charleston Hughes is a great story because I'm glad he mentioned that, because I was going to talk about that. When he came in as a rookie to Calgary in 2008, I had already been playing since 2001. So I was probably going into my 7th year in the league. And, Charleston comes up out of Saginaw State, I believe it is, or Saginaw Valley State. I'm not sure exactly the college, but he wasn't one of the most top, renowned guys. Like he was, well, if people don't know, the Charleston Hughes got cut after training camp. We went into we went into this season with a bunch of guys, but Charleston, I trained with him every day during training camp and even through that season. And I remember the first game of the season, we had 4 injuries. 2 defensive ends got injured. Middle linebacker got hurt. And, we survived the game against, I believe it was the BC Lions. We won. And I remember Coach Jones, Chris Jones at the time was our defensive coordinator, came up and asked me, well, who do you think we should look at? And I said, this Charleston Hughes guy, like, he works hard. He's got an engine. He's got that desire. He's got that underdog mentality. And Charleston Hughes got called back, and he never turned back. And yeah, him and I, we were close that first year. And, I love that I'm part of his journey because, I mean, to watch what he is, he's a legend, an absolute CFL legend. And to say that you were part of the guy's story at the beginning is pretty cool. If you ask Odell Willis, if you ever get Odell Willis on the show, ask him his story about me and my mentorship towards me. There's a story floating around there that Odell tells it well. But yeah, you know what? I love people. You know that. I love people, and I don't care where you're from. I don't care who you are. When you come in, my door's always open. There's going to be coffee ready for you. You want to sit down, hang out, chat about football, chat about life, go to the gym. I am in. I don't care who it is. And I've been like that my whole life. And I won't stop being like that. It extends into my career in the fire service, extends to my kids. And I just hope that maybe the guys that I did that for, beyond becoming great football players, they're doing that in their community for their people.
Charleston has told that story, and he told it again today, that he got cut and you went to Huff and said, you got to bring this guy back. Now, that never happens. Sometimes you're cut, you're gone. But by you doing that, and then obviously look what it's turned out to. Now, Charleston he was great. He didn't want to come on camera today because he hadn't had his hair done in a while, he said, and he hadn't shaved. So we're like, okay, whatever. But he knows. So you talked about being CFL all-stars or greats. You obviously would have seen and heard what Ed Hervey said a few weeks ago about there are no superstars in the CFL. You and your podcast partner, Sheldon DePastek, what's your take on good old Ed and his comments last week?
So we talked about this yesterday. And on our show, the ride with Chevy and Nasty, I'll give it a little plug because we got a great young producer. And I told Trey we were going to plug the shows, or Trey Smith. Chevy and Nasty, we're on every Tuesday. We go live. But we talked about it last night. And, there's a little bit of a duality there. First of all, it's a GM's job to diminish their players, even their star players. They want to get the best bang for the buck. It's happened in every sport. It happens all the time. That the comments came out publicly, it's going to happen. The fact that the player's feelings were so hurt that he has to go online to complain, to tell everyone that he's a superstar, that's the new kind of athlete. This is really a clash between the old and the new. And I'm a little bit old and I'm a little bit new. And as far as the CFL, I love the CFL. It's the greatest football game out there as far as I'm concerned. The best fans, the best excitement. Everything's great about the league. But to say that we have superstars, I'm a sports fan and I'm a realist. CFL has stars. I played with stars. I played with Hall of Famers, great players like Charleston, Nick Lewis, you name it, Henry Burris. These are great players. Ricky Ray, the list goes on and on. Great stars of the CFL. But when I think about superstars, when I think about superstar athletes, I think about generational athletes that everyone knows. And it doesn't matter where the lines are drawn on a map. And, if I'm thinking CFL, before we start producing superstars, there's got to be, you got to at least have one guy in the league that has an endorsement deal that spans the nation. We don't have that. We got the CFL Tackle Hunger is a league-wide program, and the faces of the program are the TSN commentators. Because guys move around too much in this league. They don't make stars out of the guys. They make stars out of them, but not superstars. I think guys are local stars. I think when Henry Burris was in Calgary, he was as well known as Jerome McGinley. But put Henry Burris in Toronto in his heyday, who knows, right? And it's not to diminish what the guys are, not to diminish the league, but that's the reality of the league. We got some really great players, super athletes, and they're stars in the CFL, but to say they're superstars, now maybe the context that I'm using it is different. Maybe the guy wants to say, well, I'm a superstar in the CFL, and you're arguing over semantics. But, who knows what Ed meant? I think what Ed was trying to do is say, hey, listen, you're replaceable. Every athlete in this league is replaceable, which every GM feels. And if you want to look any further, go look at Edmonton and what they did to Ricky Ray back in the day. Go look at Calgary, getting rid of Bo Levi Mitchell. Go look at anybody that's gotten rid of one of their best players. And I think that's the message. And sometimes you got to say it bluntly when you're listen, I hated when I went to Huff's office and I was 30 years old and I said, Coach, I'm going to play till I'm 50. And he laughed in my face. Now, I made it till 45, but we have egos as athletes. We have egos. We're so protective of our careers. We're so protective of our place. We're competitive. Listen, if someone said, you said, oh, you want to have a bench press competition? I'm in. If someone says, let's go snap in the park, I go train kids all the time. And as much as I train them and I want them to excel, at the University of Calgary, going to the CFL, every session I snap one or two balls to let them know who the big dog is. And that's how it is.
Nice.
That's how it is. And that's why when I see the combine, I'm like, yeah, these young guys, they're good. We got a guy that had 31-time bench press. Hey, but there's a 48-year-old that can still do 26. You better work hard.
I love
and
it.
you push each other, and you got pride, and it's healthy competition. But sometimes feelings get hurt. Every athlete's feeling gets hurt when they're coming at the end of a contract, when they're coming to a negotiating, and unfortunately, you can't take that personally. And the league goes and they write a letter and stuff, and it just, I don't know, or not the league, the Players
The
Association. It
PA.
looks kind of like,
Yeah.
whatever. Like, just ignore it. He's a GM.
Yeah. I love there was a tweet, Lorenzo Malden. I don't have time for this. Well, you do, because you're writing it on Twitter, so you obviously have time. It's March. You're a football player. All right. Randy Chevrier joining us on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. I love this. That's an interesting take. I hadn't thought of that angle about, yeah, you're right. The CFL should the TSN panel shouldn't be the most popular people in the league. It's like the federal government being the biggest employer in Canada. That's probably not a good thing, right? All right, let's go CFL off season. Let's start. You're in Calgary. The Stamps off season. It's been a tumultuous couple of years. This year they did something very unstampeder, like they made a big splash in free agency. I don't know. Give us your take. Did they cure all their problems that have illed them for the past couple of years?
Well, before they made the big splash, they made something very unstampede-like, and they missed the playoffs. That was the first thing they did. And, there were some scathing articles that came out. There was a little bit of public embarrassment. We talk about things coming out publicly on social media, some former players giving the Stampeders a bit of a failing grade and stuff. And I think some people took note and said, you know what, we got to shape up. And they've got great people running the show there. You got Jay McNeil. He's doing so much locally, and you see the things he's trying to accomplish to get people back in the stands. You got Dave Dickinson. I mean, some people don't like some of the coaching changes he made, but when you don't make the playoffs, you're going to make changes. That's the way it is, and he's still in charge, and sometimes you got to do what you think is best for the team, and that's what he did. But the splash they made with VA gives the team and the fans a lot of hope. And, when I came to Calgary in 2005, the Stamps were coming off, I believe it was a 4-14 season. They had just gotten rid of the Federic ownership. They had the owner's son playing quarterback. Matt Dunnigan, I believe, was the head coach. It was a mess. It was in shambles. Tom Hagen, the new ownership came in. They hired Tom Higgins as the new head coach. They brought Henry Burris in, and they surrounded him with talent. And next thing you know, they turned it around and they went, I believe it was 11-7. Pretty good. I think we could see a very similar situation here. Sometimes there's a speed bump, and football is one of those things that you have one or two things happen that you can't or you don't plan for, and it can ruin your season. I mean, ask the writers a few years ago when Cody Fajardo was the quarterback. What happened, right? Or Trevor Harris a couple of years ago, right? But what happened? He gets hurt, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, geez, like our season's done, and they're reeling, right? So I think they could turn around. I think the VA thing is a very positive note. Still got to add some talent in the cupboards. They still got to fill the cupboards. I think that's where the big problem was in the last number of years. The cupboards were a little bare, and when they got problems with injury and guys signing free agent contracts elsewhere, there was not too much to fill the spot. I think maybe that might have been a victim of their own success and potentially arrogant. We started talking about Ed Hervey and what he thinks about players. Yeah, players are replaceable. But when you think they're too replaceable and you think anybody can step in, and then you're in that situation where anybody is stepping in and it doesn't work out, well, you get egg on your face. And I really think that's what happened with the Stamps this year after a number of years of losing some good players, key players, and now they're kind of have to rebuild that a bit.
All right. So here in Rider Nation, this year's team will look a little like Stampeders East because Mike Rose, Tommy Stevens, and Jake Mayer are now Saskatchewan Roughriders. Let's start with Mayer. Your assessment, because he took a lot of the blame, and some of it was warranted. What kind of quarterback are Rider fans getting in a Jake Mayer? Because you probably watched him more closely than anybody over these past few years.
So I watched Jake. I had an opportunity to be in the locker room with him a few years ago during COVID. You start with all the right things. Great guy, good team guy. Played with a little bit of inconsistency in the last couple of years, but he was missing some key weapons. And when you're not surrounded with key weapons, sometimes you try to force things. A lot of pressure on that guy's shoulders. Like, you go down the last 10 years of Stampeders quarterbacks, and it's he's sitting in his locker just looking at greatness. From Bo Levi Mitchell, Henry Burris, Dave Dickinson, Jeff Garcia, Doug Flutie, a lot of pressure in that locker room. And he talked about that a lot of time, sort of not focusing on his processes, but not the legacy and living up to and being and it's like, you got to take all that off. You got to remember, it's just football. It's just football. Your legacy builds itself. He reminds me a lot of a guy like Ricky Ray. Really cool head, can go in there, but I think the pressure of being the man kind of got to him, and trying to be like, oh, now all of a sudden, well, Bo's gone, you're Bo. And he has, and I think in the situation he's in right now in Saskatchewan is going to be a really good breath of fresh air. Give him an opportunity to regroup. Give him an opportunity to kind of find his game, find his feet. And, let's be honest, the Riders have some great receivers. Their receiving core is one of the best in the league. And when you're surrounded by that receiving core, things happen a lot easier. You don't force things as much. He lost a lot of his weapons in Calgary. Malik Jackson? He got hurt last year.
Yep.
He was supposed to come back, supposed to be his number one receiver, first game in, poof, gone. Well, that's one domino. And then the next domino. And the offensive line, wasn't having the best time last year. So I think he's in a way better situation, and he's got an opportunity to ease into it. And I like that. Competition's going to be there. He's going to compete. We talked about that. There's no way Jake Mayer's going there and being like, I'm happy to be a backup. He's going to focus on his competition with the guy he's got to beat. He's not going to focus on trying to be someone who's a ghost. And when you're not competing against ghosts, you relax. And that's what I think is going to happen with him. He's going to have a great resurgence. He's a good talent. And, I'd like to see him succeed. He's a great guy. And I think that type of situation is a good environment for him to hit the reset button.
I've always liked Mike Rose, and Charleston Hughes tells a story about how they got a chance to mentor a young Mike Rose. And for years, he was just playing on the teams and would get a play here or there. And then when he got his shot, man, he was dominant and explosive. And I remember when Calgary cut him and Vaughters on the same day. And I was like, I'd sign both of them. Well, we got one of them, and Charleston said, he's something special. Did you see the same thing that Charleston saw?
Yeah, so I didn't get I did, again, when I was with the Stamps for a week, I got to hang out with him and stuff. He's a glue guy. And sometimes a glue guy is not necessarily one of your most talented guys. He's a glue guy because that's how he makes up for maybe some of the shortcomings. Well, this is not Mike Rose. Mike Rose is a glue guy with a ton of talent. And those guys are special because not only do they play well, but they raise everyone's game. And I think that's what you saw with the Mike Rose because, Derek Wiggin, pride of Queen's University that played for the Stamps for a number of years, his game was never better than when he played with Mike Rose. And you talk about that mentorship. The guys that have been through that defensive line, from Charleston Hughes, from Sean Lemon, Derek Wiggins, these guys paid it forward. We talk, it's like the theme of the show. We paid it forward to get guys to where they need to be, and then they go on to shine. You saw that with, what's his name, Florian, that left the Stamps, went to Toronto, and now he's back with the Stamps. You saw that with, what's his name, Stanky. Great players, mentored, go on to be stars. And I think, that's the same type of guy that Mike Rose is. So, again, you get a guy that's one of the best defensive linemen in the game, and he's going to make everyone around him better because he's that guy. So it's a big win for the Riders, and a huge character guy in the locker room. Like, Corey Mace is not an idiot. I played with Mace forever. He's an awesome guy, and he knows what it takes to build a winner. And Corey Mace, you want to look for anybody that's a clone of Corey Mace, it's Mike Rose. When I think of Mike Rose and the little bit I know him, he's like mini Corey Mace. And that's probably one of the guys, I went back in time and talking about the guys mentoring. Well, Corey Mace was at the front of that line. And it's just paying itself forward. And now Mike Rose is going to perform for some guy that started the domino falling for him years ago.
We're chatting with Randy Chevrier here on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline on the SportsCage. So far, some great stuff. You mentioned Mace. You played with him. Getting a chance to chat with him on a professional and personal level a little bit over this past year, he just seems like a great guy. So for all the fans that only see him on TV, is what you see what you get? Because I would say that the Corey you see in the media and on the sideline, he's actually that guy in person. Is that your experience as well? And he's like I'm saying, he's just a good dude all the time.
Yeah, he absolutely is. I mean, I'm going to tell you, the Riders have been lucky to have the guys that they had at the top the last couple of go-arounds. Like, Craig Dickinson was the guy you saw. He was a great guy. Corey Mace, a great guy. Good football knowledge. And those guys, especially Corey, he is who he is. The thing with those guys that are really awesome guys is how it affects them when things go south. And, that happened a little bit last year. Things kind of went south for a bit. And even out here in Calgary, you could hear the rumblings. You could hear the rumblings until they got it back on track. So that's always tough, because for guys like that, that feed off people, I would be considered one of those people. I would be one of those guys that if I was a head coach and things would go south, it would be tough. It would be tough. You really have to turn off the noise when you're those guys, because you love people and you'll talk to anyone and your door's open for anyone, right? Just what I said. And then next thing you know, when things are bad and your door's open, well, you might hear some things you don't like. And but Corey Mace, salt of the earth. Like I said, Corey, you're listening. October, November, I got to get number 4. It's okay, but I'm doing that to Calgary, and I'm doing that to Dave. I'm doing that to kill him. I got Jason Moss in Montreal. I got guys everywhere. I just need a shot. I just need one more shot to go in. I'll get the 31 bench press in a couple of weeks, and we'll be back in action.
Speaking of Killam, gets fired from the Stamps, ends up the head coach of the Edmonton Eskimos. How happy were you for him, for the opportunity, which seemed like he's paid his dues, and he's always like in the mix, and he gets this Eskimo job. Is he the right guy to rejuvenate what has been wrong in Edmonton for the past 5, 6, 7 years?
I think he's the right guy to rejuvenate the on-field product. Their issues are a lot deeper than the on-field product. So we're talking about the team and the play, yes. Mark Killam is a player's coach. You ask every guy that's ever played for him, they run through a wall for him, myself included. I knew Mark. Again, you talk about mentorship. Mark was working for the Stampeders as a strength and conditioning coach on a volunteer basis in 2005, or before the 2005 season. And I rolled into town as a free agent in February. I was working out with Mark. I decided, I'm going to take this guy on as my strength coach, because most guys don't, right? CFL guys have their own guys, their own programs. I start to work with him. Coach Tom Higgins, who I have a great relationship, asked me about him. I said, you need this guy on your staff. And Mark Killam rose through the ranks from, special teams. Started as a strength guy into quality control for both offense, defense. He was a running backs coach, a linebackers coach. He got the promotion to special teams when Craig Dickinson left the Stampeders, and then so on and so forth into that assistant head coach role. And like you said, he's worked his way up. He knows football, all sides of the ball. He's a very smart guy, and he's got a ton of energy, and he was just waiting for the opportunity. And do I think he's the guy? Absolutely. I think they need a young, hungry coach with a chip on his shoulder. And that's what he is, because I know Mark feels he should have had this opportunity years ago when Edmonton went and got Scott Milanovich, and then he left for the NFL during COVID. And then they found Chris Jones. And then it was Ryan Dinwiddie in Toronto. And every single opportunity that he was not the sexy pick for, and he gets his opportunity on the heels of getting fired, that's poetic, and that's a chip on your shoulder, and you want a coach like that. And I know Mark's going to fire up the guys. I know that he's going to have them super well prepared, and the West is going to be a tough place to play again. It just is going to be. They got Ed Hervey. Look, love him or hate him, I love Ed. I happen to play with Ed. I think he's a fantastic GM. It's why he keeps resurfacing. He left Edmonton after, I believe, winning a Grey Cup. He's bounced around the league. He went to BC. He wound up in Hamilton as a special advisor because they believed in his talent. And now he's back where he belongs in Edmonton, helping to rebuild. So what fixes Edmonton is a really strong, energetic head coach, and then some really good leadership at the top to bring in the talent and to fix the public image. And they got Chris Morris for that as the president and CEO of Football Ops. And Chris Morris, I mean, we're talking about salt of the earth guys on this show. There's no better guy than Chris Morris. I mean, he bounced back and forth between the Elks and U of A, built the U of A program. Plus, he's a high school principal. He knows how to deal with people. They got the right people there. Now they just got to get those fans back in the stands. And, you know, that's what I want to see in the CFL. I want to watch a game in July between the Stamps and the Riders, and I want all the corners of the McMahon full. I looked at some old film on YouTube from when I played, old CBC cut-ups, and you're like, geez, that was a game like in September on a Saturday afternoon, and it was full. We need that again. We need that again. We need that.
I think we need that everywhere.
And then maybe we'll have superstars. Then maybe we'll have superstars again.
Okay, so you mentioned the CFL in the West is going to be a dogfight, and we're going to put you on the spot here. There's only 3 teams that are going to make the playoff. Tell me the 2 that aren't making it. I know it's only March 26th, but if you had the 2 that aren't, because like I said, it's a dogfight. Everybody's pushed all their chips in.
That aren't making it. I'm going to give reasons. This is so tough. Aren't making it. Geez, it's a tough call because I think it's going to be super close. Aren't making it. I think we'll have a. Geez, I'll say Edmonton, and my little producer Trey is going to hate me, but I think they tried to clear up a quarterback controversy, but they brought in a guy who wants to be the starter way more than McLeod Bethel Thompson did. And Cody Fajardo is not going to let Trey Ford be comfortable in that seat. And I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them to stick to their guns about having Trey Ford start, and that might slow them down out of the blocks. And I think this is going to be a season, the team that's slow out of the blocks. So I think Edmonton, and I'm going to say BC, because I did not see enough out of Nathan Rourke last year to let me believe that he is the second coming. So I like the Stamps with Vernon Adams. He's got a chip on his shoulder. I like guys with a chip on their shoulder. Vernon Adams, he did everything to keep that job last year, and he still wound up out of a job. You got him with one of the greatest quarterback coaches in the CFL. So I don't know. I think the Stamps have an auto advantage coming out the gate with Vernon Adams and Dave Dickinson at the helm. I think Nathan Rourke, he proved a little bit a few years ago, but I still say he didn't prove enough to me last year. Prove me wrong. I don't care. Like, this is preseason. We can say whatever we want. But I could say Toronto's not going to make the playoffs, and they might win this year, the Grey Cup. So.
All right, it's Randy Chevrier joining us on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline. We'll wrap on this. We had Eric Francis on the show earlier talking NHL. He said you had the hardest slap shot he's ever seen in ball hockey, and that guys would dive out of the way in the media games because nobody wanted. But you wore like gardening gloves or something. You didn't even show up in hockey gloves. So here's the thing: the Flames are chasing down the final wild card spot. Do the Flames make the NHL playoffs this year, Randy?
Oh, you're testing my hockey knowledge. I don't follow it as closely as I'd like to. I mean, I was that guy that was in the Platinum Club a couple of weeks ago with Lanny McDonald and Joel Otto wearing my Montreal Canadiens shirt, and I was getting crap from those guys. But do they? You know, I don't know. They got a lot of work to do. I just hate that constant, March and April frantic chase for a spot. It's tired. It's tired. Will they do it? Yeah, probably. You know why? Because they seem to pull it off every few years, and it gives fans that hope that they're going to be better, and then the next year they tank. So yeah, you know what? They're going to make the wild card. They're going to make it. They're going to make the wild card. That's what I think. But they're going to disappoint me as much as the Habs disappoint me.
No, the Habs are in a wild card. It's all good. I said last week, watch them sneak into the playoffs and go win the first Stanley Cup since 1993, and Leaf and Oiler fans will jump off a bridge because that would be hilarious if the Canadians went in it.
They stunk in their road trip a few weeks ago, and they made history. They made history as the fastest team to be scored on in overtime in the history of the NHL with 4 seconds against the Kraken. Come on, they're not going to make the wild card.
It happens. All right. Last time, the podcast, tell us when and where, and then we'll wrap on this.
Okay, it's a ride with Chevy and Nasty, myself, Sheldon Napastick, former rider, former Stampeder, Iowa State product. We go on live 10:30 every Tuesday night. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and all the socials at Chevy and Nasty. And we have a good time. We talk sports. We lean into politics. We lean into pop culture. Last night, we talked a little bit about the election, the combine, Ed Hervey. And we're starting to talk about great Canadian things. In this crazy climate, we got to celebrate our country. Last night, we talked about great Canadian comedians. Who's your Mount Rushmore of Canadian comics if you had to pick it right now?
Steve, are we considering Steve Martin a comedian? Like, to me, he could be an actor. He could be a comedian.
Yeah.
There's a guy
Steve
named
Martin,
Ben
Canadian,
Bankus.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. There's a guy named Ben Bankus. He's new. He's an up-and-coming comedian. And there's a guy named Ryan Long, people you probably never heard of. And I'd say you'd have to throw Bob and Doug McKenzie in there under their real names just because SCTV and anything kind of to do with that.
So if you're curious what ours was kind of consensus. It was Norm Macdonald, John Candy, Jim Carrey, and Mike Myers. That was our consensus pick. And if you're thinking about Mount Rushmore, that was it for us. We thought, gee, you can't beat those guys. And there was a couple of guys in there that were honorable mentions, but those were our tops. All
right. Randy, thanks. Let's do this again before the season starts. And as we get closer to the action, it's Randy Chevrier on the Western Pizza Guest Hotline here on the Sports Cage.